As tariffs rise and political tensions deepen, the everyday lives of Americans are increasingly caught in the crossfire of decisions made far from the kitchen tables and paychecks that keep households afloat. While debates rage about borders and billionaires, what's getting lost is the growing pressure on the health, stability, and future of ordinary people. The new wave of tariffs, implemented with a show of strength but little apparent concern for long-term consequences, is already beginning to ripple through the economy, not just in numbers and graphs, but in real, human terms. The cost of living, the price of medications, the availability of healthy food, and the fragile lifelines like Social Security and Medicare that millions depend on. Economic nationalism, dressed up as patriotism, quickly becomes something else entirely when the bills come due. Tariffs may sound like a blow against foreign adversaries or a protective measure for domestic jobs, but in practice, they often translate into higher prices at the pharmacy, the grocery store, and the gas pump. Essential goods, many of which rely on global supply chains, become less affordable. And while corporations may be able to absorb or maneuver around these changes, regular people cannot. When medication costs spike because the components come from abroad, it doesn't feel like policy. It feels like punishment. In the background of these economic shifts is a political climate that feels increasingly aggressive, unyielding, and detached from the lived reality of the public. From Ohio to Florida to California, people are speaking out not just against policies, but against the rhetoric and posture of an administration many believe is eroding the nation's core values. Demonstrators waving upside-down flags and chanting on sidewalks aren't simply showing dissent. They're expressing alarm at what feels like a slow unraveling of democratic norms and a growing disregard for the vulnerable. The protests over Social Security are particularly telling. When retirees, people who've worked for decades and paid into the system, take to the streets to defend what was promised to them, it says something has gone deeply wrong. These aren't fringe activists or partisan operatives. They are grandparents, veterans, and everyday citizens watching a system they helped build being threatened under the guise of reform or fiscal responsibility. When policies designed to appear tough on outsiders or efficient in budget management begin to target the elderly and the sick, it raises moral questions that no economic argument can easily answer. What's more alarming is the speed and intensity of the reaction. Protests erupted almost immediately after Trump's return to office, not because people were surprised, but because they recognized the pattern. The same disregard for social programs, the same antagonism toward immigrants, the same preference for optics over outcomes. And now, with tariffs added into the mix, people are feeling the effects not only politically but physically and financially. For many, the connection between political decisions and personal hardship has never been more direct. In this environment, calls for unity or resilience feel hollow when accompanied by policies that do the opposite. It's not just about left or right anymore. It's about whether people feel heard, respected, and protected. As voices grow louder from cities and towns across the country, the message isn't just about any one issue. It's about a growing fear that the people in power are not acting in the public interest, and that the future, economically, socially, and medically, may be slipping further out of reach. To dismiss these protests as mere political noise is to miss their urgency. These are warnings from people watching their lives, their health, and their hopes squeezed by choices they had little say in. And while political leaders play golf or trade jabs, the consequences continue to unfold in prescription bills, empty savings accounts, and sleepless nights. The cost of these tariffs, and the broader agenda they represent, may ultimately be measured not in economic indicators, but in something far more fragile: the well-being of the American people.